Hare Krishna, a very warm welcome to our classes on Srimad Bhagavatam study. Today is our seventh class on the second chapter of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be covering from verse 26 till 34. This is our seventh class in all. So requesting Mangala Mataji to kindly recite the Mangala Charan prayers.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Om Ajnana-timirandascha Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padayuta Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavacha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam सहगुण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांच हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। थैंक यू प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्णा।
Thank you, Mangala Mataji. Very nicely recited the Mangala Charan prayers. Really appreciate.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you be willing to recite the prayer, the Srimad Bhagavatam prayers also?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Please.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devabhi Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayam Udirayate Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Nama। Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, Mangala Mataji. Thank you very much. Okay. So let us discuss 2 minutes about these prayers, the Srimad Bhagavatam prayers. So I will ask you one question. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Where in Srimad Bhagavatam this line comes?
Probably in the beginning of this
right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning. Right at the beginning. Right. So the first canto, first chapter, first verse. It actually Srimad Bhagavatam actually starts with this line. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then Janmadhyasya Yataya. The first verse. Okay. What is the second? This second verse. Narayanam Namaskritya. What does this mean? What does this signify? From where does it come? From where does it come? Anyone remembers? I mean, need not be very exactly. In which chapter do we study this?
In the same chapter, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So we study this in the second chapter, first canto, second chapter. And who speaks this verse?
It is verse number 4 spoken by Sutta Goswami.
Verse number 4 spoken by Sutta Goswami. What is this verse about?
Obeisance to Naranarayana, Rishi,
Yes.
Mother Saraswati, and also Srila Vyasadeva.
Srila Vyasadeva. So this is paying obeisances to Lord Narayan Narnarayan Rishi, and then Saraswati Devi and Shila Vyasdev. So Sudha Goswami starts with this worship of four personalities, paying obeisances to these four personalities. So then the next verse, where do you see this next verse?
Yeah, we
From
did last class,
where?
we did it, text 18. Last class
Yes,
we
so
did this
Manish Prabhu
word.
wrote the summary, so he exactly very quickly answered it. So actually, this is coming from the bhakti process. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavad sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Naishtiki actually is coming from this word called nishtha. So where the Sudha Goswami is describing this process of bhakti, and where he describes about the nishtha process. So this is also coming to the second. Devaki Nandanaya. These are of Kunti. These are coming from the prayers of Queen Kunti. From there, in the first canto, later chapters, we will study this verse also. Okay, good. So at least you should know from where these are coming and why do we recite them in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so now like to invite Manish ji. Prabhuji, can you
Yes, Prabhu.
take us to the recap of the previous class?
Yes. Hare Krishna to all the devotees, and let me discuss or provide the summary for the class done on 26th March. So here the verses are 16 to 22, which describes the bhakti process. And as we studied in Nectar of Devotion, Sri Rup Goswami
Manish
has...
Prabhuji, is
Yes.
it possible for you to open your camera so that
Yes, Prabhu.
devotees can see you also?
One
A
minute.
little more engaging. Yeah.
Yes. So actually, we also studied in Nectar of Devotion about the 9 stages of the bhakti, and we in Srimad Bhagavatam also, Sri Sudha Goswami has also defined these 9 stages, which is matching with whatever we discussed or whatever we studied in Nectar of Devotion. And here another Vaishnava Acharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, has also given some 14 stages of bhakti. So there are some new additions which we will discuss in this summary. Yeah. So verse number 16, which we will discuss now, service to devotee gives affinity to hear about Krishna. Yeah. So here it is clearly stated that by serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. And I think in Bhagavad Gita also we clearly discuss that the Lord declares that no one is dearer to him than one who risks in everything to preach his glory. Yeah. So this verse typically covers the 5 stages of bhakti. Satatam Krupa, Mahat Seva. These are the 2 new additions. Satatam Krupa is dear to
Dear to the mercy of the devotees.
Yeah. Costless
So
mercy
it is.
of the devotees.
Yeah, it is actually Satam Kripa. Satam means the devotees.
Satam Krupa. And Mahat Seva is service to the devotees. And the other bhaktis which we discussed is Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajan Kriya. So this we studied also in the Nectar of Devotion. We move to the verse 17, where Krishna cleans the heart of the sadhaka. So here again, the bhakti which is discussed here is the Bhajana Kriya. Yeah. So here it clearly says that message of Sri Krishna are non-different from him. And whenever therefore offenseless hearing and glorification of Lord are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is powerful as Lord personality. So Krishna is always present during this Bhajana Kriya.
Yeah, Manishji, just 1 minute. Just 1 second. So devotees should mark this verse number 17 in Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, this verse is telling you how you can get rid of your lower nature. Say, for example, if somebody has anger, greed, envy, devotees usually ask this question a lot of time in the satsang. Sir, how can I get rid of my anger? How can I get rid of envious nature, etc. So here Lord Sudha Goswami is clearly saying, Shranvatam Swakatha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyan Tasthohi Abhadrani, Vidhunoti Suhrat Satam. So hridayantasto hi abhadrani. So all the dirty things of your heart, how you can get rid of it? Shrunvatam swakatha Krishna. So this is the medicine that you should take or one should take if they want to get rid of their lower nature like lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. So this verse is my favorite verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. So we move to verse 18, yeah? So which talks about regular Bhagavad Seva destroys anarthas and makes bhakti steady. So again, as Prabhu mentioned, regular hearing of the book Bhagavata and serving devotees destroys almost all inauspiciousness. Yeah? So this verse talks about the Anartha Nivritti Nistha, and Anartha Nivritti is also listed here as Anartha Pagamam. Yeah, so this is also one part which is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Going to verse 19, it talks about the lower modes disappear and one becomes happy. And here it is nothing but we have to attain the Brahma Bhuta or Atmananda stage, or the stage of self-satisfaction. This stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service and a devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. So here the stages of bhakti are ruchi and asakti. Yeah. We move to verse 20. The verse 20 is the mind is enlivened in bhakti. His mind is cheered up in bhakti and one realizes Bhagavat Tattva. So the mind becomes enlivened by engaging or in contact with the devotional service of the Lord. Yeah. So one gains realized scientific knowledge of the Supreme Person, gets liberation, liberation free from all material association. The bhakti which we have discussed here are Rati, Prema, Darshanam, and Harer Madhura Bhuva. So here I think the new Darshanam and Harer Madhura Bhuva are the new stages which are discussed apart from the 9 stages.
Yeah. So darshanam actually means that one starts to get the vision of the Lord.
Vision of the Lord. Yeah.
So I would give you the reference of the Dhruv Maharaj Katha, where Dhruv Maharaj started to see the Lord within his heart. And then once the darshan comes, then we have sweetness of the Lord. So Harer Madhurya Anubhav.
Anubhava, Madhurya Anubhava.
Anubhav means experience, Madhurya means the sweetness. So after the darshan, the devotee starts to experience the sweetness of the Lord. So everything is very, very clearly defined in a very clear terms in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, Prabhuji, very nice.
Yeah. So verse number 21 is something one sees self as a master. Now he has progressed in this devotional service. So scientific knowledge of God is like a sun. And as soon as the Krishna sun arises in one's heart, the darkness of the materialistic speculations and about the absolute truth and the living beings is once cleared off. So now the whole darkness is gone, and then we have this devotional service of the Lord is risen in our heart. So there are many other theories, different speculations are made, but Sri Krishna is realized in the truth only by the process of Bhakti Yoga. So the moral or the bottom line is just Bhakti Yoga, just do unlimited or unalloyed Bhakti of Sri Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, you are saying something?
Yeah, what I was saying was, say when the sun comes, we are not able to see everything. We are also able to see everything outside, but we are also able to see ourselves also. So that is the analogy of the sun. So if you remember in the previous verse, it is talking about scientific knowledge of God. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. That is what it is talked about. So one who has Bhagavat Tattva Vijnan, one who understands who is God, one who is able to understand God, one who is able to see the God, he is also able to understand his own position. So my own position is I am servant of God. So unless we understand completely who God is, we cannot really understand who we are. So like Manish ji is mentioning, there are many theories. So many theories means, for example, scientists actually don't understand who is God. So they keep on speculating, they keep on debating about what is our identity, who we are. Some say we are Indian, some say we are American, like that. But the moment the person understands who is God, like he is Lord Krishna, he completely understands that no, I am actually the servant of the Lord. if you once again giving you the reference from Dhruv Maharaj pastime, in Dhruv Maharaj pastime also, the moment he realizes who is Lord, he is able to understand and have Lord's darshan. He gets a guilty feeling. He gets a guilty feeling that I was actually going out for only for a kingdom. I was only worshipping Lord for some small kingdom, but I should actually have worshipped Lord for Lord Himself. That is the true duty of the living entity. Yes, Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Verse 22, again it talks about the bhakti to Vasudeva is enliving to the self. Yeah. So again, bhakti to Lord Krishna is special. Lord Krishna is Swayam Rupa personality of Godhead and all other forms of Godhead, beginning from Sri Baladeva, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, extending to the Purusha Avtaras, Guna Avtaras, Lila Avtaras, and are many other 1,000 manifestations. Yeah. So these are what we talked about the bhakti process from verse 16 to 22. Now we move to verse 23 onwards, which talks about what are the benefits of worshipping the Lord. Yeah. So first one is bhakti is meant for Lord Vishnu only. So among Guna Avtaras, Vishnu is to be worshipped. Yeah. Only Vishnu can release us from the material existence, the prison of material existence we are living. Only Vishnu can help us to overcome the cycle of birth and death. No demigod, however, can release the imprisoned living being from conditioned life of material existence. So there are demigods which we discussed, Shiva, Brahma, Indra, Varuna, but I think demigod will not lead us to release us from this material existence, the prison of material existence. Verse 24 talks about the three modes of nature. Sattva guna is the best and favorable to release Lord. Yeah? So here again, we know that we are controlled by the three gunas, Raja guna, Sattva guna, Tamo guna. And here we know Rajas is superior to Tama, Sattva is superior to Rajas. And the analogy which we studied here was fire Sattva. So smoke is, analogy given here, smoke is superior to the wood and fire is superior to the smoke. So finally the Sattva guna is where we need to rise for us. So the platform which we are talking about here is the Sattva guna. Yeah? And the last verse we studied about sages worship the Lord Adhokshaja in the past to follow them. So all the sages worship the personality of Lord who is beyond the gunas to derive the ultimate benefit. And whoever follows them becomes eligible for liberation. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Anurag.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Very nicely done. Now, if you see here, sages worshipped Lord Adhokshaja. So, where do you remember the word Adhokshaja was mentioned in the past in Srimad Bhagavatam? Can
Samaya
anyone?
Purusam Paro Dharmo Yatho
Yatho
Bhakti
Bhaktir Adhokshaja. So, the same word Sutta Goswami is using in this verse also. So, it's very clearly saying that whose bhakti one should be doing. Sages worshipped Lord Adhokshaja in the past, and we should follow these sages. We should follow these sages. So we will continue our discussion for today's class, and this is the overview map of the second chapter in front of you. And we have discussed from 23rd, 24th, and 25th verse in the fourth section. So just to give you a very quick recap of what we did in the first four parts, Sud Goswami starts to reply the questions, the answer to the questions that the sages of Naimisharanya had asked from Sud Goswami. And he starts to give reply. He first of all thanks them. He then pays obeisances to his spiritual master Shukdev Goswami, and then starts to respond to the answer. And he gave this answer. The first question was, which is the ultimate benefit, and what is the essence of all scriptures? These were the two questions. And Sud Goswami replies that the ultimate benefit and the essence of scripture is pure devotional service, pure bhakti, Shuddha bhakti to Lord Adhokshaja, Lord Krishna. Then, after giving this response, he elaborates on his response. He says that bhakti actually is the goal of Varnashram. And then he gives a lot of verses where he tells that actually if you are doing Varnashram, if you are engaged in the occupational duties of Varnashram, ultimately we have to come to the conclusion that we have to do our bhakti towards Lord Adhokshaja, to Lord Krishna. And we had a lot of discussion around it. And I had also shared one lecture by a very intelligent, very learned sannyasi in our movement. His name is Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj. I have also shared that link once again in the WhatsApp group, and I would request devotees to understand the nitty-gritty connection between the Varnashram Dharma and the process of devotional service. So that lecture is very good. Jayamala Mataji had issued some summary of that lecture. Also, our Ishwar Prabhu from Rohtak, he has also given some essence of this particular discussion. Then from 16 to 22, we had discussed various stages of bhakti. Just now, Manish ji had given the summary of those. And then from 23, 24, 25, we are now building up another discussion. And in the beginning, in 23, 24, 25, Sud Goswami is saying that only Lord Vishnu is to be worshipped. Then he mentioned that Sattva Guna is the superior, and we should worship Lord Vishnu like that. And ultimately, in 25th verse, he's talking about we should follow the sages, because the sages also in the past have worshipped Lord Krishna. So we will finish our remaining verses today, and then we will also finish our verses from 30 to 34, where Sud Goswami will respond to question number 3 and question number 4 by the sages of Naimisharanya. So remember, question number 3 and question number 4 we will discuss in the class. Okay, so I will pick up the action from verse number 25. So in verse number 25, Sud Goswami is giving the reference of sages of in the past who worship Lord Adhokshaja, and he is inspiring the sages of Naimisharanya that you should also follow them. And while discussing this verse, we had discussed this point from the purport. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, except for the Mahajanas, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 authorized agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion. So the 12 authorized agents, actually he is referring to the Mahajanas. So there are 12 Mahajanas. So we will not discuss the list who are those 12 personalities, but suffice it to say that there are 12 personalities that have been recognized by the Lord as Mahajans. And here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that except for Mahajans, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 agents who know the purpose of religion. Actually, Srila Prabhupada phrases lines in his purport from a very famous verse that comes from Mahabharata. And what now you see on the screen is that famous verse from Mahabharata where Srila Prabhupada is drawing those lines. I wanted to discuss this verse in the previous class, but because of we had crossed our time limit, I thought that I will properly discuss in this particular class. So today we have Manish ji, Mangala ji, Vasudevan Prabhu, and Vidya Mataji who will be assisting me in reciting these verses. So first of all, I will request Manish Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
So I will recite and kindly follow me. Tarko pratishtha shrutayo vibhinna.
Tarko pratishtha shrutayo vibhinna.
Nasau muniryasya matam na bhinnam.
Nasyo muniryasya matam na bhinnam.
Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam.
Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam.
Mahajano yena gata sapantha.
Mahajano yena gatha sapantha.
Yeah, so this verse has been spoken in Mahabharata, one parva, by Yudhishthir Maharaj. So line by line, we will quickly try to understand the meaning. Tarko pratishtha. Tark means logic or dry argument. Tarko pratishtha. Dry arguments are inconclusive. Shrutayo bhinna. Shruta word is coming from Shruti. So Shruti means the Vedas. And Vibhinna. Vibhinna means many. Shrutayo Vibhinna. Vedas are variegated and they teach multiple things. Vedas are teaching a lot of different things. So dry arguments are inconclusive. Vedas are variegated. Nasau munir yasya matam na bhinnam. And there are many munis. There are many great personalities. And each of these great personalities have an opinion. And their opinion differ from each other. So great personalities whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Nasau Munir Yasya Matam Na Bhinnam. So there are different personalities and each have their opinion. So how do we actually come to the conclusion? Something very similar was mentioned by the sages of Naimisharanya also. There are many conclusions of the religion. So how do we know which is the ultimate conclusion? So giving that background, they actually ask question number 1 and 2. Please tell us what is the essence of the Vedas. So similar thing is being mentioned in this verse as well. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated self-realized person. Unadulterated self-realized person. Dharmasya tattvam. So the essence of religion, nihitam. Nihitam means it is hidden. Guhayam. Guhayam, it is confidential. It is actually hidden in the heart of self-realized people. Mahajano yen gatha sapantaha. So understand that we cannot understand religion simply by simply by logic, simply by reading the Vedas, simply by hearing some great personalities, but those personalities who have understood the self, who has understood the meaning of religion, who has understood the essence of religion, we need to simply follow these people. Mahajano yen gataha sapantha. Consequently follow whatever progressive path the Mahajanas advocate. So something similar Prabhupada is writing in his purport, except for Mahajanas, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 authorized agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion. Person who desire their own good may follow these Mahajanas and thus attain the supreme benefit. Now you will see these reference of all these Mahajanas you will find will come in Srimad Bhagavatam. And what this Prabhupada is trying to say, or what Suta Goswami is trying to say in this verse is that in the past also these Mahajanas they have followed the worship of Lord Adhokshaja. So don't think too much about what is the essence of religion, what should I do, what should I not do. Simply follow what these Mahajanas have been doing, because it is easy to follow others rather than trying to come to a conclusion by reading our own self. So this is the simple argument Suta Goswami is trying to give through this verse, and we are trying to discuss the background from where Srila Prabhupada is writing these lines in his purport, and we discuss this verse from Mahabharata 1 Parva. Now coming to the fresh verse on this class, which is verse number 26 and 27. So here there is a new section we are starting now. Actually, we started this section in the previous class. We have already discussed verse 23, 24, and 25. We are now coming to the 26th and 27th verse. So the theme of this section is only Lord Krishna to be worshipped. So in support of this theme, Suta Goswami is already giving this argument that only Lord Vishnu's worship is to be done. Then he gives this argument that Sattva Guna is superior to Rajoguna and Tamoguna, and Sattva Guna is suitable for realizing the Supreme Lord. Then he goes to give another argument about the sages, and now he is going to give another argument where he's clear-cut mentioning and asking to reject demigod worship. So it's establishing superiority of Lord Vishnu from verse number 23, 24, and 25. And in 26 and 27, he makes a dedicated statement. He makes a dedicated statement about demigod worship. So let us see what he says about demigod worship. Manishji?
Yes.
Mumukshavo ghora rupana.
Mumukshavo ghora rupana.
Hitva bhuta patinnatha.
Hitva bhuta patinnatha.
Narayana kalah shanta.
Narayana kalah shanta.
Bhajanti hi anasuyavaha.
Bhajanti hi anasuyava.
Yes. Now let us see line by line meaning. Mumukshavo ghora rupana. So mumukshavo, what is the meaning of word mumukshavo? Mumukshavo means those who are desirers of liberation, mukti. So those people who are desirers of mukti, they are known as mumukshavo. Ghora rupan hitva. Hitva means rejects. And Ghor Rupan means there are many demigods who have ghastly forms. So those demigods who have ghastly forms, can you name some of them? Can you name some of those demigods who have ghastly forms?
Yamaraj, Yamaraj,
Yeah, Yamraj actually is not a demigod. He's a Mahajan. He's a Mahajan, so he's not in the category of demigod as such. So,
Kuber, Kuber,
yeah. So, for example, Kali, goddess Kali. So you see the form of goddess Kali. She is wearing the garland of skulls. She's taking out her tongue out as if she's thirsty of drinking some blood. So these are some Ghor Rupan. These are, or another example could be Kal Bhairav. Lord Shiva also, the kind of form he gives, he has a snake on him, on his hair. He has snake also encircling his arms like that, and he puts this form or this ash of Shamshan Ghat on his body. So these are some of the Ghor Rupan. Ghor Rupan is, these are forms of demigods or other devatas, which is not so, I would say, in the first appearance, very pleasing to the heart. So Mumukshavo Ghor Rupan Hitva. So even the desirers of liberation. So we as devotees, we are not hankering for liberation. We are hankering for what? We are actually hankering for service to the Supreme Lord Adhokshaja in the spiritual world. That is our destination. But there are other transcendentalists who are desirers of liberation, mumukshava, mukti. So even the desirers of liberation, they reject Ghor Rupan. They reject the frightful forms of whom? Bhutpatin. Bhutpatin means of demigods. Then Atha. Atha means therefore. Narayana Kalha Shanta. Worship only blissful forms of Lord Vishnu. Narayana Kalha Shanta. Kalha means Purn Ansh. Purn Ansh, the plenary portions of Lord Narayan. Plenary portion means all those forms of Lord Vishnu which are as good as Lord Vishnu. For example, like Lord Narsingh Dev, Lord Vaman Dev, Lord Varaha Dev, like that. Narayana Kalha Shanta. Now all these forms of Narayana are Shanta. Shanta means they are blissful forms. Bhajanti hi anusuyava. Yeah? And these people who are mumukshava, who are desirous of liberation, they worship only these blissful forms of Lord Vishnu. So worship is coming from this word called bhajanti. And he anasuyavaha. So this is the important word. He anasuyavaha. Anasuyavaha means without any criticizing attitude towards the devatas. And they do so without criticizing the devatas. So they, although they reject the Ghor Rupan, they reject the Ghor Rupan forms of the devatas, but they do it in a Anusuyava way. Anusuyava way means without any disrespect. Without any disrespect. So this is the message. So in verse number 23, 24, 25, Sud Goswami is recommending worship of Lord Vishnu. But while recommending Lord Vishnu, he is also giving a very important message here in verse number 26, that although we should embrace worship of Lord Vishnu and we should reject the worship of the demigods, but when we reject the worship of the demigod, we should not reject the worship of the demigod in a disrespectful way. We should continue to respect the demigods, considering them to be the exalted devotees of the Lord. So that is what Sud Goswami is trying to give this message in verse number 26. So the word Anusuyava is very, very critical here to understand this verse. So Manish ji, can you read these lines from Prabhupada's purport?
Yes, Prabhu. Demigods are also like other living entities. The demigods, being like other living entities in the material world, all are liquidated at the time of annihilation of the material structure. They are themselves unable to get liberation, and what to speak of giving liberation to their devotees. The demigods can award the worshippers some temporary benefit only and not the ultimate one.
Yes. So here Prabhupada is making a general statement about demigods. Although this statement actually does not apply to Lord Shiva but it applies to Lord Brahma and all other devatas. So Lord Shiva has a special position. He's not. He's also in the category of demigods, but he's not something like other living entities. So Jiva Tattva. So Lord Shiva falls in a tattva called Shambhu Tattva, and then we have above Shambhu Tattva we have Vishnu Tattva. So Vishnu Tattvas are actually superior to Shambhu Tattva, and Jiva Tattva is inferior to Shambhu Tattva. So Shambhu Tattva is somewhere between Lord Vishnu and Jiva Tattva. But we will talk about Shambhu Tattva some other time. But just to understand the position of demigods in comparison to Vishnu's, the Lord Vishnu, here Srila Prabhupada is saying the demigods being like other living entities. So they are like other jivas only in the material world, are all liquidated at the time of the annihilation of material structure. So when there is a destruction of this living, this material world, these demigods are also annihilated. They also actually move into this pralaya. They are also destroyed. They are themselves unable to get liberation. What to give liberation to their devotees? The demigods can award the some temporary benefit only, not the ultimate one. So here Prabhupada is trying to say that demigods cannot award liberation like Lord Vishnu can give, because demigods are unable to give this liberation to the living entities. So if they are themselves not liberated, they themselves are annihilated at the time of pralaya. So what to speak of giving liberation to the devotees?
Hello.
How can somebody? Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. So how can somebody who themselves cannot award liberation can or they themselves are annihilated at the time of pralaya can give liberation to the devotees? So that is the main message here in verse number 26. Okay, we'll move to the another verse. By the way, let me ask this question. So what is the role of demigods in this material nature? What is the role of demigods in this whole material creation? What do they do?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Dandavat.
Yes, Prabhuji. Dandavat.
Because, as a materialized Jeev, I need somebody to be called God and look for God. And looking for God and finding the God is only one aim to get moksha. But moksha can be given only by the Godhead, God the complete, the supreme, the Vishnu or the Krishna. So these demigods can only help me to pave the way for that. They only can guide me. They are my personal gods. They are not immortal. They are mortal like me.
Yeah. My question was, Prabhuji, what is the role of demigods in the material world? So the point you are discussing, we already discussed. So my question is, what is the role of demigods?
Yeah, I'm coming to that only. So
Yes.
their role is basically, they are the medium. They are on the way, on the steps to reach to the God. They guide us that way. They are the, you can say, ladder steps or stepping steps through which, whose mercy, whose guidance, I can reach to the God.
Okay. Any other answer? That is okay. One answer by Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
They are the power agents of the Lord, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
They are.
Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. One by one. Yeah. Jivan Prabhu. Yes. Yeah. Jivan Prabhu, you were saying something?
They are the power agents of the Lord who give for whom we approach for some temporary benefits. And of course, in the third canto of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, we do all the sacrifice, to satisfy the demigods. So they give the benefit only from that angle. It is that they give only some temporary benefit. That is also not, whatever benefit they are giving is not. It is perishable. It is not that.
Okay, fine.
But the ultimate thing is given only by Lord Krishna.
Okay. And Vijay Lakshmi Mataji, you were saying something?
Yeah. Basically, if in an administrative setup, you will have the CEO, and then you will have the departmental heads to perform. So it's like the distribution of the most
Power.
important works related to the material energy involvement.
Correct. Correct.
So God cannot come. I mean, the Supreme God cannot do everything.
Yeah.
So He is assigned assignments to these people.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
And
Yes.
that is why they should not be disrespected.
Yeah.
But our liberation is only by
Lord Vishnu.
Narayana.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yes. So I think Vijay Lakshmi Mataji gave a very good answer. So she said that like in a administrative setup, for example, in a country, there is a government, there is a prime minister, and the prime minister has a cabinet. So in the cabinet, there are various other ministers. So there will be a minister for electricity, there will be a minister for maybe defense, there will be a minister for finance, and so on. So similarly, in this material world also, Lord assigned these demigods to take in charge as in charge of several affairs of the material creation. For example, Lord Indra is the demigod for rains. Now remember, in there's a famous story where Lord Krishna lifts Govardhan hill. Why? Because Lord Indra was putting rains from the heavens. So he's the in charge of rains. Similarly, Surya Dev is in charge of lighting, like that. So who is the prime minister? Prime minister is Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna ultimately. And then through these demigods, he actually manages the affairs of the material creation. So that is the purpose of these demigods. And that is why they should not be disrespected, because they are very exalted devotees of the Lord. They have been given some special duties by the Lord to perform. But certainly we should know the difference between the demigods and the Supreme Lord. Only Supreme Lord can give liberation. Demigods cannot give liberation. They can only give some temporary material benefits. That is the idea. And this point is being very much clarified in these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, we'll move to the 27th verse. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yeah. So, Maniji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. I will recite. Rajastama prakratayah.
Rajastama prakrataya.
Samashila bhajanti vai.
Samashila bhajanti vai.
Pitrabhuta prajesadin.
Pitrabhuta prajesadin.
Shri Aishwarya Prajepasha, Shri Aishwarya Prajepsavah.
Shri Aishwarya Prajepsava.
Very nice, very nice. Okay. Okay, let us go line by line. Rajastama Prakritayah. So, what is the bottom line in this verse? People desiring material benefit worship demigods. People desiring material benefit worship demigods. You will remember this theme was there also in Bhagavad Gita. Now here Sud Goswami is saying Rajastama Prakritayah. Those of Rajogun and Tamogun natures. Rajastama Prakritaya. Prakritaya comes from Prakriti. Prakriti means nature. So those whose nature is Rajoguni and Tamoguni, Samashila Bhajanti Vai. They worship according to their natures. Corresponding to their natures, they have Tamoguni nature, they have Rajoguni nature. So people of Tamoguni nature worship whom? Can you remember from Bhagavad Gita? And people of Rajoguni nature worship whom? Again, can you remember from Bhagavad Gita? There is a specific verse in Bhagavad Gita around that. But the point is, those who are Tamoguni and Rajoguni, they worship according to their natures. So, for example, those who are Tamoguni worshippers, they worship ghosts, spirits, and so on. Worship our Rajoguni natures, they actually worship Lord Ganesh to fulfill their desires, or maybe Lord Shiva, and so on. Then Pitra Bhuta Prajeshadin, like for example, Pitras, other Jivas, Prajapati. So the examples are also given. So those who are of Rajoguni and Tamoguni nature, they worship Pitras, they worship Jivas, they worship Prajapatis, and so on. For what? Shri Aishwarya Prajep Shavaha. Shri Aishwarya Prajep Savaha. So what does these mean? Shri means power, Aishwarya means wealth, and Prajep Savaha actually means Praja. Praja actually means progeny. So people desiring material benefit worship demigods. So here in the previous verse, Sud Goswami is rejecting demigod worship without disrespecting demigods. And here in 27th verse, Sud Goswami is saying, why do people in general worship demigods? Now here you will see in this purport, I picked up some of these lines by Srila Prabhupada, and these are very, very powerful lines, very important lines. And actually, if you read this purport, one line in the purport actually is italicized. Like you see the first line. Rarely I see in the purports of Srila Prabhupada any line is italicized. So read these lines very nicely. So Maniji, can you read these lines?
Yes, Prabhu. One should, so formula of life, one should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of hard labor for existence, and that should be the motto of life. One careful to execute occupational service with faith in God and in the proper way, and that will lead one gradually on the progressive march back to Godhead.
Yes, Prabhu. Very nice. So let us reflect a little bit on this line. So in this verse 27th verse, what is being mentioned? That people who desire material benefit, they actually worship demigods. And devotees actually should not worship demigod. Devotees should actually engage themselves in the worship of Lord Vishnu. So for material benefit, what should the devotee do? If for material benefit worship of demigod is rejected, how should a devotee derive material benefit in his life? So that formula Srila Prabhupada is giving. One should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of one's hard labor for existence. So here Srila Prabhupada is very clearly saying that instead of worshiping demigods for material benefits, what a devotee should do? Devotee should work hard. Work hard. Go out, work hard, earn your living in a proper way, in a dharmic way, and whatever you earn from your dharmically earned money, you should utilize that money to worship the Supreme Lord. So one should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of one's hard labor for existence. Hard labor for existence means you need food for your existence. You need shelter for your existence. And how you should get this food and shelter for your existence? You can only get in this material world if you earn some money. You do some shram. You should do some labor. And that should be the motto of life. Now here in this one line, in these two lines, it is very clear how one should live. So one should live for existence in a very dharmic way. Go do your job, do your business, do whatever you want to do for your living. Do it in a dharmic way, and then utilize whatever you have earned in the worship of the Supreme Lord. And that should be the motto of life. One should be careful to execute occupational service with faith in God in a proper way. And that will lead one gradually on the progressive march back to Godhead. So here we had already had this elaborate discussion. Careful to execute occupational service. So I was giving this example to Vrindavaneshwari Mataji in the beginning of the class. So there are two extremes. One extreme is our dharma, our duty, and another extreme is our bhakti. So people who sometimes give lot of importance to bhakti because they hear these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. So the topmost dharma is bhakti to Lord Adhokshaja. Now, hearing this verse, a person can become too much excited and enthusiastic of doing bhakti, and may neglect the duties. For example, there is a mother, and the mother just now gave birth to a child, and after 6 months, the child is actually hungry. He's crying in the bed, and the mother wants to go to Mangal Aarti. There is time in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning, and she wants to go to Mangal Aarti. And the husband is saying, why are you not taking care of the baby? Actually, baby must be crying. You should feed the baby. Oh, no, I should not feed the baby. It is mentioned in Bhagavatam. Savi pumsam paro dharmo yado bhakti adhokshaja. So bhakti to Lord Adhokshaja is actually topmost, supreme. I should go to Mangal Aarti. I will not take care of the baby. Let the baby cry. Now, this is not the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here Srila Prabhupada is very clearly mentioning one should be very careful to execute occupational service. Occupational service means our duty as mother, our duty as father, our duty as, say, a citizen of this country, our duty as employer, our duty as employee. So we have several different roles in this life, and each of these roles, as our, we should consider it as our duty, and we should try to carefully execute these duties as much as possible with faith in God in the proper way. And that will lead one gradually on the progressive march back to Godhead. So, our dharma, our duty is not different from our bhakti. Actually, our dharma, if done properly, if done in a careful way, gives us the platform. It takes us to the platform of Sattva Guna. From Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna, it lifts us to the platform of Sattva Guna. And from this platform of Sattva Guna, we can jump to the platform of pureness. Pureness means Savai Pumsam Puro Dharmo Yatho Bhaktir Adhokshati. So that is the formula for life that Prabhupada is giving in these lines in purport of verse number 27. Okay. Now comes the king of all verses in this chapter. King of all verses. Now, after discussing the whole chapter number 2, right from starting from Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yatho Bhakti Radhokshaje, and from time to time, Sud Goswami is telling that Varnashram is not the ultimate goal, and then Lord Vishnu is to be worshipped, and demigod worship is to be rejected. Even after that, if someone has any doubts remaining in the heart that worship of Lord Krishna is not the supreme worship, then here are two verses, verse number 28 and 29, which I am calling as the king of all the verses. Here, everything is mentioned in very, very clear terms, no ambiguity at all. So, supreme goal of life is Sri Krishna. So, like you see, the theme of this section has been only Lord Krishna is to be worshipped. And the theme of these two verses is exactly the same. So now I would invite Mangala Mataji to kindly help me recite these verses. Mangala Mataji, are you ready?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Vasudeva Paraveda.
Vasudeva Paraveda.
Vasudeva Paramakha.
Vasudeva Paramakha. Vasudeva Parayoga.
Vasudeva Parakriya.
Vasudeva Parakriya.
Vasudeva Param Jnanam.
Vasudeva Param Jnanam.
Vasudeva Param Tapaha.
Vasudeva Param Tapaha.
Vasudeva Paro Dharmo.
Vasudeva Paro Dharmo.
Vasudeva Paragatihi.
Vasudeva Paragatihi.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much. I see there was some lag when Mangala Mataji was reciting. Mangala Mataji, if you can manage to go near the internet connection you might have in your house, probably
Yes,
that might improve
the
the
connection is not proper. That's why I was not able to hear you.
Yeah, okay. No problem.
Okay, I will open mobile data and see, Prabhuji.
Just yeah, no problem. Okay. So let us see. Vasudev Paraveda. Vasudev Paraveda means ultimate object of Vedas is Sri Krishna. Paraveda. And then Vasudev Paramakha. Makha means sacrifice, the yagyas. Purpose of sacrifice is to please Sri Krishna. Vasudev Parayoga. Yoga is for realizing Sri Krishna. Vasudev Paraha Kriyaha. So Kriya actually means fruitive activities. So fruitive activities are rewarded by Sri Krishna. Vasudev Param Jnanam. Sri Krishna is supreme knowledge. And Vasudev Param Tapaha. Param Tapaha. Tapa means austerities. Austerities are performed to know Sri Krishna. Vasudev Paro Dharmo. Ultimate dharma is loving service to Sri Krishna. and Vasudev Paragatihi. The supreme goal of life is Shri Krishna. Now you see here Para Veda, Para Makaha, Para Yoga, Para Kriyaha, Param Jnanam, Param Tapaha, Paro Dharmo, Paragatihi. Now what else anyone wants to understand, if they want to understand, if they want to know what is the ultimate goal of life. Now this verse is telling in no ambiguous terms who is the supreme goal of life. What is the supreme goal of life? Because outside there goes on a lot of debate. And Lord Krishna is supreme, Lord Vishnu is supreme, and Lord Shiva is supreme, Lord Brahma is supreme, Lord Ganesh is supreme. All kind of debates and discussions are going on. Here Sud Goswami was asked this question, tell us the ultimate goal of life, tell us the essence of all Vedic scriptures, and Sud Goswami in no ambiguous terms is giving a very clear answer. Supreme goal of life is Shri Krishna. Now, from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, can you give me a verse which tells Vasudev Para Veda? Does it remind of you any verse from Bhagavad Gita?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
15th chapter, 15th verse.
Are wow. Very nice.
Vedaihi sarvaihi ahameva vedyaha.
Vedaishcha sarvair ahameva vedyo vedant krit vedavid eva chaham. So I am the goal of the Vedas. Vedaishcha sarvair ahameva vedyo. I am supposed to be known from the Vedas. So Vasudev Para Veda. So 15th verse, 15th chapter from Bhagavad Gita.
मैं उच्चारण करूं गुरुजी?
Prabhuji, let us do it
अच्छा
later.
ठीक है गुरुजी.
In the
Sorry,
interest of time.
Sorry,
but just to mention that verse you really identified very correctly. Okay.
Thank you, Guruji.
So Vasudev Paramakhaha. Paramakhaha means what? Purpose of sacrifice is to please Shri Krishna. Now there is verse that comes in the 3rd chapter. There is a 9th verse in the Bhagavad Gita in 3rd chapter, where Lord Krishna is saying, Yagyarthat karmano anyatra loko yam karma bandhanam tadarth karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. So what does this verse means in the 3rd chapter, which is based on karma yoga? So here Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna that you should do your work as yajna, because if you don't do your work as yajna, actually it will be a cause for karma bandhana for you. So what exactly does it mean? We just discussed short while ago. What did we discuss? Follow your duties, follow your occupational duties. So yagyarthat karmano anyatra loko yam karma bandhana. So exactly the same message Lord Krishna is giving to Arjuna in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that you should do your duty as yajna, as sacrifice. So you should not think that you should not, because Arjuna was having this difficulty deciding whether he should fight this war or not, because he was feeling attachment towards his relatives. So Lord Krishna was saying that don't feel attachment towards your relative. Actually do your duty and do your duty as yajna, as a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice is expected? Is expected of this sacrifice to forego that attachment he is feeling towards his relatives. So that is what we see again in Bhagavad Gita, where purpose of sacrifice is to please Krishna. Vasudev Para Yoga. Vasudev Para Yoga. Para Yoga means yoga is for realizing Shri Krishna. And which verse in Bhagavad Gita do we remember? We remember
60 chapter 47, the last verse. Yoginam
api sarvesham mad gaten antara. Yes, Prabhu, very nice. So among all the yogis, api sarvesham mad gaten antaratma. Just surrender unto me. Mad gaten antaratmana. Just worship me. Shraddhavan yo bhajate mam sa me yukta tamomata. So that is 47th verse in 6th chapter. Then Vasudev Para Kriyaha. Fruitive activities are rewarded by Shri Krishna. So Para Kriya, now we get this verse in 22nd verse from 7th chapter, where Lord Krishna is mentioning about that if you worship the demigods, the faith, I give that faith. But in reality, I fulfill the desires. I am actually fulfilling the desires. So Vasudev Para Kriya. So this is the 7th chapter, 22nd verse. fruitive activities actually are rewarded by Shri Krishna. Then Vasudeva Param Jnanam. Again, we can quote the same verse, 15th chapter, 15th verse. Shri Krishna is supreme knowledge. Vedant Krit Ved Vid Ev Chaham. So I am only the compiler of the Vedas. I am only the knower of the Vedas. So Shri Krishna is the supreme knowledge. Vasudeva Param Tapaha. Vasudeva Param Tapaha. Here in the 29th verse of the 5th chapter. What is that? Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Rachati. Here again, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam. Tapasam means tapasya, austerity. So austerities are performed to know Shri Krishna. Vasudev Parodharmo. Vasudev Parodharmo, you can give many verses here in the second chapter of Bhagavatam itself. It is mentioned Savai Pumsam Parodharmo Yado Bhaktir Adhokshaje. And you can also give this verse from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 66th verse. Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raj. Ultimate dharma is loving service to Shri Krishna. And then Vasudev Paragati. Vasudev Paragati means the supreme goal of life is Shri Krishna. So ultimately, Suta Goswami is giving all these sentences ultimately to establish Vasudev Paragati. So 28th and 29th verse, Suta Goswami is very clearly establishing what is the essence of all processes of bhakti. It is actually Lord Krishna. It is Lord Vasudeva. Okay. So this section is finished, where we have discussed about that demigod worship is to be rejected without disrespecting. Lord Vishnu's worship is to be accepted, and ultimately, in very clear-cut terms, he is establishing that whose worship? It is Lord Vasudeva we should worship. Now, Suta Goswami answers question number 4. So what is question number 4? Can you remember? Can you remind? What was question number 4? Does anyone remember?
Lord's Purusha Avatars. Describe the Lord's Purusha Avatars.
Purusha Avatars. And what is question number 3?
Question number is why did Krishna incarnate in this?
Why did Krishna incarnate? So question number 3 is what is the purpose of Lord Krishna coming to this material world? That is question number 3. And question number 4 is tell me about the Purusha Avatars of the Lord. Now here, Suta Goswami in verses 30th onwards, he will first of all answer question number 4. Now the question may arise, why is actually answering question number 4 first? The question number 3 was asked first, but he is answering question number 4. So there is a reason. Because he first of all wants to establish how the material world is created. And for creation of material world, Purusha Avatars are involved. So therefore, he actually first of all answers question number 4 and then goes to question number 3. And question number 3 actually he will answer right in the end, in the verse number 34. So first of all, he will answer question number 4 in verse number 30th, in verse number 31st, 32nd, and 33rd. And then he will go to question number 3 in verse number 34. So Suta Goswami actually is answering logically and not chronologically. Chronologically means in the serial order the question were asked. So he's not answering in that serial order. Rather, he is answering logically that he'll first of all establish how the material world is created by describing about Purusha Avatars. And after describing about Purusha Avatars, he will then explain that Lord comes, Lord Adhokshaj, Lord Krishna actually comes to do certain things for some purpose. And that we will see in verse number 34. So that is the link between the various sections and how the flow goes in Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter number 2. Okay, now I will have 4 verses. So 2 verses I will divide between Vasudevan Prabhu and 2 verses to Vidya Mataji. So Vasudevan Prabhu, may I request you to kindly help in recitation? Yes, Dandvat Pranam Prabhuji. So this verse number 30th is about Karnodakshayi Vishnu. Let us see. Sa evedam sasajagre.
Sa evedam sasajagre.
Yeah. Bhagavan Atma Mayaya.
Bhagavan Atma Mayaya. Bhagavan
Sat
Atma Maya.
Sad Asad Rupaya. Sad Asad Rupaya Chasau.
Sad Asad Rupaya Chasau.
Gunmaya Guno Vibhu.
Gunamaya Guno Vibhu.
Yes. So let us see line by line. Sa evedam sasar jagre. Sa evedam sasar jagre. What does it mean? Agre word means in the beginning. Agre means in the front. Agrani, we call it agrani in the Sanskrit or Hindi. So agre means in the beginning. So in the beginning, sa evedam. Sa he is referring to whom? Sa he is referring to the Lord. So just now he has actually finished describing about Lord Vasudeva. So he's described about Lord as how? He's described about Lord as Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Paramakha, etc. etc. So just after giving that description about Lord Vasudeva, in 30th verse, Sut Goswami is about Evedam Tasjagre. So that Lord, which Lord? Lord Vasudeva, described in verse number 28 and 29. That Lord alone created this universe. Evedam, Evedam. Evedam means this universe. So they're sitting in this universe, Sut Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, and he's saying that Lord alone created this universe in the beginning. So sa evedam sasar jagre Bhagavan Atma Mayaya. So Bhagavan, he's referring to whom? Lord Krishna. Bhagavan Atma Maya. And how does he create this material world? From Atma Maya. Atma Maya. Atma Maya means what? So there are many ingredients that the Lord uses for creating this material universe. For example, Mahat Tattva, and for example, Pradhan, etc. etc. So all these ingredients Lord uses for creating this material world. And then Sad Asad Rupaya Chasau. Sad Asad Rupaya Chasau means endowed with the energies of cause and effect. So here the word Sad Asad actually means cause and effect. Now you will see that in this material world you will have cause and effect. Cause and effect means, for example, in this material world we will see gravity. So gravity is the cause. For what? Maybe when the fruit gets disconnected from the tree, the fruit actually falls on the earth. So this is cause and effect. Endowed with energies of cause and effect. Sad Asad Rupaya Chasau. And then Gun Maya Aguno Vibhu. And material gunas itself remains transcendental. Aguno Vibhu. Material gunas. How does he create this material world? The Lord creates this material world with energies of cause and effect and the material gunas. What are these material gunas? What are these material gunas? Material gunas are Sattva, Rajas, and Tama. And in the end, he says, Sut Goswami says, Aguno Vibhu. But himself remains transcendental. So here you see in this picture, Lord Vasudeva is shown here in the spiritual world. And from this Lord Vasudeva, actually first of all, Mahavishnu, Lord Vasudeva expands as Mahavishnu, Karunadakshay Vishnu. And this Karunadakshay Vishnu, from the bodily pores of Karunadakshay Vishnu, from the breathing of Karunadakshay Vishnu, infinite universes actually comes out. That you can see here, there are little balls shown in this picture. These are the infinite universes that are coming out. So for all these universes, here Sut Goswami is saying is that Lord Krishna or Vasudeva, using his material energy, endowed with energies of cause and effect and material gunas, but he himself remains transcendental. Himself remains transcendental means it actually does not come in contact with these Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. He is separate from these Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and that's how he creates these material universes. So he has starting to describe about these the process of creation of these material nature. Okay, let us look at the next verse. Now here in the next verse, he's talking about Garbhodakshayi Vishnu and Shirodakshayi Vishnu. So let us read this verse. Taya vilasiteshva eshu
Taya vilasiteshveshu
guneshu gunavaniva
guneshu gunavaniva
anta pravishta abhati
anta pravishta abhati
Vijnanena Vijrambitaha.
Vijnanena Vijrambitaha.
Yes, Prabhuji. Now you can see here the meaning of this first line actually is a little bit distributed in the verse. Taya Vila Siteshva Eshu Guneshu Antaha Pravishtaha. So Antaha Pravishta means he enters inside the universe. So here you will see the Lord personally entered this universe and the bodies of the jivas. Antaha Pravishta, entered. Taya Vilashiteshva Eshu Guneshu. So the bodies of the jivas is actually made up of various gunas. So Taya, the Lord, that Lord actually personally entered in this universe and the bodies of the jivas. And then Gunavan Iva Abhati. Abhati means appears. जैसे like we call in Hindi, आभास हो रहा है मुझे. Abhas means it feels like something is going on in this way. So abhati is coming from this abhas. Gunavan iva. So you will see this word iva. Iva means like. You will see when you will read Sanskrit in Srimad Bhagavatam, in other Vedic texts also, the word iva means like. Uske jaisa. Gunavan iva. So the Lord actually also appears as if he has come in the contact of the gunas. Why? Because the Lord personally enters this universe and the bodies of the jivas. So it appears that the Lord is also actually one of those living entities, but Vijnanena Vijrambitaha. Vijnanena Vijrambita means he appears to be one of these created beings, but he is always transcendentally situated. Transcendentally situated means he doesn't come in contact with these gunas. He doesn't actually get affected at all by these gunas. These gunas are Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna. He always above these gunas. So what is the meaning of this this line, above these gunas? So the Lord has a spiritual nature. The Lord has spiritual energies. The Lord has a spiritual word. So the Lord always remains in the spiritual realm. But through his energies, he's actually managing the whole affairs of these material universe. But he is always aloof. He is always separate from the material energy. So that is the point. So the material energy is the inferior energy of the Lord, not the superior energy. So superior energy is the spiritual energy, and the Lord is always remaining in the superior energy. The inferior energy is always separate from the Lord. So what is going on here? Let us connect the dots from the previous slide. So Lord Vasudev, described in verse number 28 and 29, he expands. He expands as Mahavishnu, and from the pores of this Mahavishnu, these universes are coming out. You see these small poles. So this Mahavishnu's another name is known as Karanodakshayi Vishnu. So the Karanodakshayi Vishnu is actually lying or floating on this Karana ocean. And in this Karana ocean, while the Karanodakshayi Vishnu is lying, these innumerable universes are coming out from the pores of his body. And after that, what happens? This Karanodakshayi Vishnu, as you see in this picture, he further expands and enter into each of these universes. So like you see, there are many universes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. These are many universes. In Sanskrit, we call them Brahmanda. Brahmanda has this word called Anda. Anda words comes from Anda. Anda means ellipsoidal. So you will see they are not exactly circular, they are ellipsoidal, like they are like eggs. So in each of these eggshells, Brahmandas, universes, So this Mahavishnu expands and enters into it. He enters into it. And this Vishnu, when he is entering into this Brahmanda, is known as Shirodakshai Vishnu. He is known as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. I'm sorry. He's known as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So what is this Garbhodakshai Vishnu? So Garbhodakshai Vishnu, when he enters into each of these universes, the perspiration coming out from the body of this Garbhodakshai Vishnu, the sweat of this Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he fills this Brahmanda to half of the Brahmanda is filled with this sweat. And in this sweat, this is known as Garbhodak ocean. And in this Garbhodak ocean, this Garbhodakshai Vishnu is lying on Sheshnag, on the bed of the Sheshnag. And Mother Lakshmi Devi is massaging the lotus feet of this Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And from this Garbhodakshai Vishnu's navel, there comes out Lord Brahma. There comes out a lotus, and on this lotus, Lord Brahma takes birth. And this Lord Brahma is actually responsible for creating the material world. And on the stem of these lotus that comes out from the navel of Lord Vishnu, there are 14 planetary systems. So you will see in Srimad Bhagavatam, this method of creation, this process of creation is explained in several other chapters also in the coming cantos. So this we will discuss again and again in this Srimad Bhagavatam. But this is Sud Goswami is explaining this process of creation because he has to answer this question: what is about Purushavatars? So he's giving this process of creation in very brief terms. So and what happens after Brahma creates the material world in which you are living, in which I am living? After Brahma creates this material world, this Garbhodakshai Vishnu further expands and enters into each of the living entities, and not only living entities, in actually each of the atoms also. So we typically hear this word called Antaryami, or we hear this word called Paramatma. So we hear this word Paramatma in the context of this Shirodakshai Vishnu, which enters into the heart of each of these living entities, and not only the living entities, each of the atoms also. So for example, when you, like we have this particle of salt. So the particle of salt, when you put this particle of salt on our tongue, the salt appears salty. Why do this salt appear salty? This salt appears salty because Shirodakshai Vishnu is present in the salt. Like you remember in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, I am taste of water. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. In the 7th chapter, 8th verse, Lord Krishna mentions, I am actually the taste of water. So everything that you taste in this material world is tasty or have some taste because the Lord is present in the atom of that particular object. So that is the role of Shirodakshai Vishnu. So typically we understand Shirodakshai Vishnu as Paramatma, but actually all these three Vishnus are Paramatmas. How? So this Mahavishnu or Karanodakshai Vishnu actually is the Paramatma of this whole material creation. He is the Paramatma of this whole material creation. So when this Mahavishnu looks at this material creation, which is in the seed form means he's in the Mahat Tattva. So when the Lord Vishnu looks at this material creation, which is like a cloud, then this universe starts to come out. Then the universe starts to manifest. The jivas start to come in these universes like that. And who is this Garbhodakshai Vishnu? This Garbhodakshai Vishnu is the Atma, is the Paramatma in each of these individual universes. So he's the Paramatma at the level of universes. Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu is the Paramatma at the level of material creation, and Shirodakshai Vishnu is the Paramatma at the level of jivas and at the level of atoms and so on. So like this, Garbhodakshai Vishnu and Shirodakshai Vishnu is actually given in a very brief explanation in this particular verse. Let us move to the 32nd verse. Vasudevan Prabhu, once again. यथा हि अवहितो वह्निर Hare Krishna Prabhu, are you there?
Sorry, Prabhu, it was on mute.
No problem.
Yata
Yatha hi
hi
avahito.
bahito bahnil.
Yes. Darushva ekah swayonishu.
Darushva ekah swayonishu.
Naneva bhati vishwatma.
Naneva bhati vishvatma.
Bhuteshu cha tatha puman.
Bhuteshu cha yat tatha puman.
Yes, Prabhu. Very nice. Now here, Suta Goswami is giving the nature or the characteristics of this super soul. So how does this super soul, how do we understand this super soul? And he's trying to explain it with the help of an analogy. He's saying, Yatha, just like he, avahito, vahanir. Vahanir means fire. Yatha, avahito, avahito means permeate. Now, what Swami is trying to say here, if you see wood and you just ignite the wood by maybe you light a matchstick and you show this fire to the wood, then what happens is that the wood starts to burn ferociously. Just by showing some spark or showing some small fire to the wood starts to burn. So where is this fire coming from? That is what Suta Goswami is saying, that actually this fire is hidden inside the wood. You cannot see this fire, but this fire is hidden inside the wood. It is so integrated with the wood that we cannot differentiate between where is the fire and where is the wood. But actually the fire is present inside the wood. So he's giving, just as fire permeates different pieces of wood but remain as one. Naneva bhati vishwatma. Similarly, Paramatma is present in different. Nanev. Nanev means nana. Nana means different. Naneva bhati vishwatma. Vishwatma actually is talking about the Paramatma. Similarly, the Paramatma is present. Bhati means present. Naneva bhati vishwatma, where bhuteshu cha tatha puman. He is present in different living entities, but he still remains as one supreme Lord. So it may appear to someone that this Paramatma is there in all the living, in all the Paramatma present, like the fire present in the wood. You cannot see that fire, but that fire is present in the wood. Similarly, Paramatma is also present in all the different living entities. So different living entities would mean some living entity has a body of lion, some living entity has a body of dog, some living entity has a body of Brahmana, some living entity has a body of Chandal, etc., etc. But so the Paramatma is present in different living entities, but actually it is only one, but remain as one Supreme Lord. So this is another description, another characteristics that Suta Goswami is giving here in the 32nd verse. Now we will read a little bit from the purport where Srila Prabhupada is giving a very important point about the Paramatma. Okay, Prabhuji, can you read this?
As from manifest the Lord in our hearts by fire of hearing. As from wood, fire can be manifested, or as butter can be churned out of milk, so also the presence of the Lord as Paramatma can be felt by the process of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects, which are especially treated in the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads and Vedanta.
Yes. So here you see a very beautiful analogy has been given by Suta Goswami, the analogy of fire. So fire is there inside the wood, but we cannot see it. Similarly, Paramatma is there in the heart of living entities, but we cannot see it. How to bring that Paramatma out from our heart? Out from our heart means in our lives, in our consciousness. How can we bring that Paramatma out into our consciousness, so that he becomes prominent in our consciousness? So that is where Srila Prabhupada, in a very creative way, using the same analogy and connects the same analogy with the process of hearing, And he is saying that we can bring out that Paramatma into our heart by the legitimate process of hearing and chanting. So, my dear devotees, when you are going to a Krishna Katha, when you are chanting your rounds of holy names in the morning or maybe in the evening or whenever you want, then what are you doing? You are trying to attract or you are trying to motivate that Paramatma in your heart to come out and manifest in your consciousness and make you Krishna conscious. So, as from wood, fire can be manifested, or as butter can be churned out of milk. So, he is giving another analogy. So, Sud Goswami has given this analogy of fire and wood, but Prabhupada is adding his own analogy here. He's saying, as butter can be churned out of milk. So, when you take this milk, you cannot see the butter. But when you churn out this milk using this gadget, then the butter comes out to the surface. Similarly, when you hear about the Lord, when you chant about the Lord actually surface out uh, on the surface of your consciousness. Similarly, like the butter comes out on the surface of the milk. So, I found these lines very, very beautifully explaining the process how our consciousness can be turned from materialistic consciousness to Krishna consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting, as described in the Vedic literatures like Upanishads and Vedanta. So these are some of the lines that are mentioned in Prabhupada's purport. We sometimes, when we read this purport, we may not stop enough to reflect upon them and to actually enjoy the deeper meaning that is there inside these lines. So I'm trying to bring some of those lines out as per my little capacity. Yeah. Now we will invite Vidya Mataji to recite these verses. Vidya Mataji,
Yes,
are you
Prabhuji.
there? Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
We'll go to the verse number 33. Here the message is super soul in the heart facilitates enjoyment. Asau gunmayir bhavair
Aso gunmair bhaver
bhuta sukshma indriyatma bhi.
bhuta sukhas indra mat mabhi
Okay, no problem. Swanirmiteshu nirvishto
swanirmichu nirvisto
bhungte bhuteshu tadgunan.
bhukte bhuteshu tadguna.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much. So here Sutu Goswami is saying, Asau gunmayir bhaver. So Paramatma enters living entities affected with gunas. And what does he do? Bhuta sukshma indriya atma bhi. And what is this living entity? This living entity is having senses and mind. Bhuta means living entity. Sukshma indriya atma bhi. Atma actually referring to the mind. Sukshma indriya means subtle senses. Bhuta sukshma indriya atma bhi. Then swa nirmiteshu nirvishto. Swa nirmiteshu nirvishto. What does it mean? Which have been created by the Lord. Swa nirmiteshu. So these senses and the mind is coming from where? This actually has been created by the Lord. Nirvishto. Nirvishto actually is coming from enters. Paramatma enters the living entity. So that is nirvishto, affected with gunas. Bhungte bhuteshu tadgunan. Bhungte bhuteshu tadgunan. And then facilitates the living entity to enjoy the sense objects. Bhungte. Bhungte means to enjoy. Bhuteshu means the living entity. Tadgunan. Tadgunan means the three gunas. Sattva guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So here again the process of creation has been described and further details are being provided here. So in the previous verse it is mentioned that the super soul is all pervading. It is present in the heart of living entities, all the living entities. And here in the 33rd verse, it is being mentioned that what does this super soul do when he enters the heart of the living entities. So here it is being mentioned that the super soul, when he is situated in the heart of the living entities, he facilitates the enjoyment of the living entities because the living entity actually wants to enjoy this material world. Yeah, he comes in contact with Sattva Guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, and by coming in contact with all these gunas, he wants to enjoy this material world. So that is what is being mentioned here in verse number 33. So Mataji, can you read these lines?
Yes, Prabhuji. Jiva gets future bodies as per the consciousness he develops. The gross material body is based on the conditions of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being.
Yes. So here, what is being mentioned here, which have been created by the Lord. So these bodies, these senses and the mind have been created by the Lord. But how? So that is what is being mentioned here, that the jiva get this material body based on the conditions of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being. So we know that from our study of Bhagavad Gita that we are this gross body, and underneath this gross body we have this subtle body, which is made up of mind, intelligence and false ego. So our desires are stored in the mind. Our desires are stored in the mind, and based on our karma and our desires, at the end of our life, the Lord, which is situated as Paramatma in our heart, takes note of all these things. And this Paramatma, based on the desire of the living entity and the karma of the living entity, awards him the next body. So, for example, if a living entity has a desire for eating a lot of obnoxious food like non-vegetarian food and so on and so forth, so what the Lord will know? Lord will know that the desire is to eat a lot of non-vegetarian food. Okay, you have this desire for eating non-vegetarian food, then you get a body of a lion. You enjoy eating non-vegetarian food in this body. So that is what it is being mentioned here, that the jiva gets future body as per the consciousness he develops, and the Lord, the Paramatma, simply facilitates the living entity to enjoy these sense objects. Okay, now the next line, Mataji.
Paramatma always remains with the jiva. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness.
Yes. So although Paramatma facilitates the desire of the living entity has so many desires, and according to his desires, he gets a body in the next life. But here, Prabhupada is trying to say, although the Paramatma facilitates the desires, which are not so great desires, they are simply desires for material enjoyment, but he continues to remain with the living entity throughout his cycle of all these births and deaths. He continues throughout all these cycles, he continues with the living entities, waiting for that day when the living entity actually will desire to come towards the Lord. And that is what Prabhupada is writing here. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. And what is the real happiness? That real happiness is come towards the devotional life, devotional service of the Lord. So he does it in a gradual way. He attracts it by karma yoga, then jnana yoga, then dhyana yoga. There are several ways he does it. We will not go into it. But the point is, Paramatma continues to be there with the living entity, always encouraging the living entity to move away from material sense gratification and to turn towards spiritual happiness. So that is what in the verse number 33 we discussed. Okay. Now coming to the last verse of today, and here Sud Goswami is answering question number 3. So question number 3 was, for what purpose Lord Krishna took birth? Lord Krishna incarnated. So we will read this. So the verse is something like this. Just give me 1 minute. Bhavatyesha satvena
Bhavetya esha satvena
lokan vai loka bhavanaha
lokan vai loka bhavana
Leelavatar anurato
Leela avatar anurato
Devatiryan naradishu.
Deva Tiryan Naradishu.
Okay. So here Sud Goswami is saying Bhavatyeshva satvena. Bhavatya esha. Esha means what? Esha means the living entity. So the discussion is about the living entities. Bhavatyesha. So Bhavatyesha Satvena. Satvena means those people in this material world, actually those who are trying to come out from this material world. So that is why the word coming Satvena. Bhavatyesha Satvena, to reclaim. So Bhavatya here means to reclaim those in pure goodness. Those who are trying to come out from this material world, to reclaim those living entities, Lokan vai Loka Bhavana, and to maintain all the universes. Lokan vai Loka Bhavana. Here the word Bhavana actually means to maintain. Lokan vai Loka Bhavana, Leela Avatar Anurato. Leela Avatar Anurato, inhabited, Lord assumes Leela Avatar. And this Lokan actually is mentioned here, Devatiryan Naradishu, to maintain all the universes, which is actually inhabited by Devas, inhabited by Tiryan. Tiryan means human. Lord is mentioned why Lord Krishna. Two purposes are given here: to maintain all the devatas, humans, and animals, and to reclaim those in pure goodness. So, if you recall verses from Bhagavad Gita in chapter number 4, in chapter number 4, Lord Krishna says, where he mentions about that I come here to establish the religion. Dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So that is somewhat reflective of to maintain all the universes. And then in the next verse, he says, Janma karmacha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah, evam yo veti tatvatah. Then punarjanma janma karmacha punarjanma Arjuna, right? So here in that line he says, those who knows my janma and karma, my birth and my activities are actually transcendental. My activities are transcendental. I come and actually take people back to God. So that is something reflective. You see Gita is similar here. In one part, the Lord says, I come here to establish the principles of religion. I come here to establish the principles of religion. Why do I come here to establish the principles of religion? So that people can do devotional service nicely. And when people do devotional service nicely, then he says, Neti Mamupeti So Arjuna. Then you don't take any birth any longer in this material world. So like that, Lord appears to come to reclaim jivas in goodness. So this is the answer to question number 3. And I have some lines here to read from the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, can you read this?
Yes, Prabhuji. Lord's purpose of Avtaram is the take back the living entity. Sometimes he incarnates himself or empowers a suitable living being to act for him. But in either case, the purpose is the same. The Lord wants the suffering living beings to go back home, back to Godhead.
Yes. So ultimately, he's saying that either he comes himself or he empowers some suitable living being. To empower some suitable living being, that gives me a hint of acharyas like Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada was something like an empowered acharya, or maybe other acharyas like Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya. He empowers a suitable living being to act for him. But in either case, the purpose is same. The Lord wants the suffering living beings to go back home, back to Godhead. So actually, that is the ultimate purpose of the Lord, why he comes to this material world. So with this, I think we will conclude our discussion for today. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now we can have some takeaways, some comments and questions. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Dandavat. प्रभु जी वो
Yes,
जो
Prabhuji.
क्वेश्चन था डेमीगॉड
Dandavat,
और
Prabhuji.
गॉड का,
Yes.
it's a very simple one difference.
Haji.
Demigods can take us only up to Swarga. Demigods mercy
Yeah.
can take us only to Swarga but not Moksha, while Godhead can take us
Right.
to Moksha. So
Yes,
this
Prabhuji.
is the
Very
basic difference between demigods and the God.
Full
And
marks, Prabhuji. 100%.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Guruji. दूसरा
Yes.
about those
Haji.
आपने एक बार, मेरे को याद नहीं हुआ कौन सा श्रीमद् भागवत गीता में है, उसमें था इच्छा, प्रकृति, परमेश्वर. तो इच्छा is linked to the soul, जीवात्मा. प्रकृति is myself. तो जो मैं इच्छा करता हूँ वो प्रकृति पूरी करती है, बट परमेश्वर की मर्जी से, by the mercy of परमेश्वर. Parmeshwar gives the it will
so
not become.
the jiva desires, the prakriti or the material nature facilitates, and the Lord
Complete sanctions.
Yeah.
जी गुरुजी, that was right.
वही चीज है. 5th chapter
जी
में,
गुरुजी.
5th chapter में बाद में आपको 18th chapter में भी मिलेगा इसके बारे में.
जी गुरुजी.
वो जो 5 कारण है आप देखेंगे शुरुआत के पहले 20 श्लोकों में ही है. आई थिंक 18th 19th चैप्टर, सॉरी 18th 19th वर्ष के आसपास है ये 18th चैप्टर में, वेयर 5 कारण, 5 कारण जो दिए गए ना कर्म के.
जी गुरुजी. हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
Yes,
principally it depends on that only, or based.
Yes, very good.
Thank you, thank you, Guruji. All glories to my Guru. All glories to Prabhupada. All glories to Sab Santon ki.
I see some chat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Nothing in the chat. Jayanti Mataji saying thank you. Okay. Any other question? Any other comments? Was the class? I hope it was clear. The flow of the verses should be clear. You can see how in Srimad Bhagavatam, Sudha Goswami is clearly establishing bhakti, is clearly establishing bhakti process, is clearly contrasting between the other processes like Gyan, Vairagya, Varnashram, is clearly explaining that who is the topmost object of worship, and ultimately is in the end is making it very clear why Lord Krishna actually comes to this material world. So we have covered question number 1 till question number 4, and I hope the flow of Bhagavatam is very clear.
I have a doubt.
Yes, Mataji.
See, only Lord Krishna can liberate us. There is no doubt about that. I have no doubt on that. Bhaja Govindam is going to help us. I have no doubt on that. Now my doubt is on acts of Bhagwan himself when he takes the human form. Okay, I'll give you 2 examples, Prabhu. If you can help me, you clarify this doubt.
Yeah.
I had visited Rameshwaram, and Ram, we know, is Supreme Lord himself, correct? So Supreme Lord, when he took the form of a human being to teach us, how to be a Maryada Purusha and things like that. Other than that, the way he conducted his life, like for example, in the battlefield, every day he was going and, the battle was going on and on. The final result of, Ravan being killed was still yet to happen. In that situation, even at one stage, Rama becomes really tired. And then Agastya Muni is one of the Saptarishis who visits that place, and he is teaching him Aditya Hridaya Shloka, and he asks him to narrate that, and victory will be yours. So this one incident happened, and this comes in Ramayana. Similarly, it's coming as part of Ramayana itself. Similarly, Rama establishes the Shivalinga in the banks of the ocean, like there, and Rameshwara Puja he does, and That also, you know,
Yeah.
that Shivlinga is Shiva's form. So when he has taken the form of Ram, he has done this. As Krishna also, his morning rituals, he never used to miss. Uh, I have heard, you know, in many discourses they say. So when they took their
Mhm.
human form, they themselves were worshipping, though we know they themselves were the incarnations of Supreme Lord himself, who has descended. Still,
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
deities were worshipped for him, by him. Like, so what was the
Mhm.
meaning behind that? That is my doubt.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things I would like to mention here. So
Guruji, can I answer this?
Huh?
If with
yes,
your permission, with your
yes.
permission.
Pardon?
That is the difference between demigod and the god. Because even if he took permission, Avatara, but he was not pure Godhead. So he was given some work to assign. And he did puja of Shivalinga to get Vijay over Ravana. As he completed the pull, and after completing pull, he did that. And there were one Kamal was short, so he was going to give his eye because his mother told once when he was child, your eyes are so beautiful, they are like Kamal. So then Devi appeared, and she said, no, I was taking your test. So, but Shivalinga puja he did to get Vijay over Ravana and after completing the Setu.